So a really long time ago, in the ancient years of the early 2010s, Ben Shapiro cared far less about owning the libs and more about writing and becoming a screenwriter. Considering you know Ben as a right-wing shill and not a famous screenwriter, I think it's fair to say that things didn't exactly work out for him. A while back, he put out a movie called Run, Hide, Fight, which tastefully is about a school shooting. In the words of some reviewers, it's like Die Hard but in a school shooting. I don't really think that's a good thing to say, but that's what's been said about it. So every time Ben complains about people politicizing a mass shooting, keep in mind that Ben put out a propaganda film in favor of arming teachers, students, and turning campus security into a private army.
As if it's not sad enough that they're only paying him $12 an hour to protect our school, they expect you to do it without a fucking gun?
Now, that's a discussion we're going to be saving for another day. Today, however, we're going to be talking about one of Ben's world-famous reviews on media that a lot of people like. Ben is that guy that sees a lot of people enjoying something and just has to come in and spew some stupid shit. Because Ben is the type of person who just can't let you enjoy something. He's got to find a way to piss on it, even if there's no actual critique to be said, much like how he's going to be doing today, as we'll see. Anyways, let's go ahead and see what everybody's favorite failed screenwriter had to say about the most talked about show this season.
The problem with this episode is that it absolutely does not advance the plot in any way and actually has no consequences.
And before he's even managed to explain himself, he's already run face first into a wall with his first statement. It does not advance the plot in any way. The thing about writing a good story is that you can't just give your characters something good. In order for it to be interesting and a fulfilling story, you have to make them earn it, right? It's the difference between a miracle and a logical explanation. So in this episode, Joel and Ellie need a working car and probably some guns to protect themselves with. But the problem is, how are these things you just stumble across randomly 20 years into a zombie apocalypse, right? The show solves this problem by making it so Joel becomes friends with the Doomsday Prepper years before the current events of the story, which is a lot more interesting than just, oh, they found a car with some guns in it. Good thing the writers, random survivors left these laying around. Now, someone like Ben might be asking, well, why didn't they just take the gear off the Fireflies at the end of the first episode? Oh, right. Hey, Joel and small child. I know you're roughly 1 minute away from getting your faces ripped off by a horde of zombies, but you might want to scavenge some stuff before you hit the road. The immediate danger of being ripped apart piece by piece actually explains why they didn't take anything off the Firefly corpses. And now, episode 3 is here to explain how our characters will start their journey across the country.
And one of the reasons that it is completely irrelevant to the story is because there are no stakes. Here's the problem with Brokeback Zombie Farm. 1, it's a zombie show. There are no zombies in this entire episode, like none. Again, there are only 2 issues in a zombie apocalypse. You could have this whole thing, but the whole thing is these 2 dudes in love, but they're fighting off zombies. But they never fight off the zombies. It's not an issue. So, irrelevant.
Wow, I wonder what the stakes in a zombie movie are. Ben, the stakes in a zombie story are the zombies, right? I feel like that should go without saying. Ben tries to argue that there isn't a real threat in this story because of the lack of zombies, which leads me to believe that Ben either got to the part where Bill and Frank start kissing and just turned off his TV, or he didn't watch it himself, like he got one of his assistants to watch it for him so he could talk about it on his show. I think with Ben Shapiro, though, either one of those things could be true. Now, I'm sitting here struggling to explain why there aren't any zombies in this episode, because the reason for that is so abundantly clear that this isn't even a critique, right? It's just a fucking lie. We see Bill hiding from the military because he's a doomsday prepper. Paranoia and being a doomsday prepper kind of go hand in hand, which makes sense. And this is also something that's extremely common in the States, so it isn't unbelievable to include such a character who's like this. It also makes sense for a doomsday prepper to know exactly how to sustain themselves in this kind of situation. The army or whatever gets the hell out of there, and Bill gets right to work on getting oil, water, tools, everything he'd need not only to survive, but to defend himself. Oh, and look at this, a zombie in an episode with no zombies. Strange, right? In this episode, it's made perfectly clear that the reason why Bill isn't worried about zombies is that the traps and defenses he has in place are so effective that all he has to do is sit back and watch the security monitors while enjoying a nice steak dinner. The reason there are no zombies is because we're dealing with a character who's so incredibly effective at keeping them away that it's just not a threat to him. Now you might be thinking, well, that's exactly what Ben is saying. There's no threat for this guy. However, this show keeps telling us about this other threat, and we're gonna get to it in a second. I'm sure once Ben realizes that Ellie likes girls, suddenly her being immune to the infection will mean that there are no stakes. I'm really excited for Ben's end of season review.
Or any other sort of species level extinction event movie, like War of the Worlds or something. The question is, how do human beings repopulate? How do they survive? And how do they become successful once again? If you're going to censor an episode like that, what you need to do is you need to have an episode about people who can have babies. You want to have like an interesting conversation about love during the apocalypse? The big issue of love during the apocalypse is What if you have a baby?
So once again, Ben Shapiro is a failed screenwriter, and his takes on movies and TV shows perfectly illustrate why the only directing credits he gets now are for projects put out specifically by the Daily Wire. I'm not sure if you're aware, but a while ago Ben typed out this really angry Twitter thread because the first half of Glass Onion was a complete misdirect and a waste of time. I think complaining about the first half of a whodunit film being a misdirect is a clear indicator of somebody's lack of storytelling skills. What drives the point home even further is Ben's idea to include a zombie trope that's just so annoying and overdone that it makes me grateful he chose politics over writing. Well, you know, chose. What makes a story interesting and appealing to wider audiences is when you have something new that hasn't been done before. And, well, babies in a zombie apocalypse have been done before like a lot. There's a pregnant lady in Dawn of the Dead, there's a pregnant lady in The Walking Dead, pregnant lady in The Walking Dead video game, 2 pregnant ladies in The Last of Us 2, because 2 is for 2 pregnant ladies, obviously. Good job, Naughty Dog. Ah, the future that liberals want. Ben even brings up the pregnant lady from A Quiet Place, which I had somehow completely forgotten about. You know what's annoying about this writing trope? It's the same thing every fucking time. Oh no, if the baby's too loud, we could get killed. Oh no, if the baby's infected, what happens to me, the mom? Oh no, the pregnant lady is going through labor during this life or death situation. Shit. Look, if you're gonna suggest an alternative idea, maybe make sure that idea isn't total dog shit. That's just my recommendation.
The entire episode has no zombies, no real threat, and it is about 2 gay dudes. This is a show where this show could have this entire episode could have taken place completely without a zombie apocalypse. It just would have been a Showtime romance between 2 middle-aged gay dudes who get older, one dies of cancer and the other assisted suicides himself.
I really hate to be the actually guy, but because he keeps saying that there were no zombies, I gotta make sure that the people who haven't seen the episode realize that there was a zombie and that there is a reason why no zombies show up for the rest of the episode. Even excluding this one zombie who gets completely murked by Bill, there are still plenty of things that can kill you in a zombie story, which is why I've always been interested in them. For example, there's the threat of starving to death, there's getting infected, there's getting sick in a world where modern medicine just doesn't fucking exist anymore. This is also something that this show tackles by the end of the episode too. Oh, right, and this other thing that the show keeps bringing up, raiders. Bill is setting up all these defenses and traps, not just to keep zombies out, but to keep people out. The whole reason he doesn't want to help Frank in the first place is because he's afraid that Frank is going to come back with more people and try to rob him. It's so annoying to hear Ben say that this episode has no stakes, because the episode is constantly showing you, not reminding you, but showing you that there's still a very real threat of being attacked. That's why Bill lived alone for so long, and that's why Bill gets upset when Frank says he's been talking to people over the radio. That's why Bill has his gun out when first meeting Joel and Tess for the first time. For fuck's sake, Bill even gets shot when they finally are attacked by raiders. The story is giving Ben what he wants, but he's not listening to any of it because the 2 characters are gay, and this is something that he feels that he needs to constantly remind us of in his video.
Nick Offerman, but he actually plays Ron Swanson, but Ron Swanson who likes to nail dudes. And it is about 2 gay dudes, I say again, Lacaja Falls or whatever this is. Brokeback Zombie Farm. Here's the problem with Brokeback Zombie Farm. Showtime romance between 2 middle-aged gay dudes. But the whole thing is these 2 dudes in love, but they're fighting off zombies. But it's so important because it has gay people, you see.
Every 5 seconds, these guys are gay, they're gay. Brokeback zombies, they're gay. Like, can you just drop it? Can you just give an actual critique without pointing at the gay couple and going, gay? Like, you can't do that, really?
Or you could have them somehow interact with the main characters. They never do. They interact with the main characters for like 30 seconds. They are both dead by the time the main characters arrive to pick up guns. So this entire episode is a sidestep. It has nothing to do with anything. Ellie and Joel could have just stopped by, found the house, picked up guns, and gone on their merry way, and it would have taken 10 seconds. Instead, you get an entire hour-long digression to do, as I say again, Lacaja Falls or whatever this is.
Another fine critique by masterclass screenwriter Ben Shapiro. The main characters are not present, therefore, it has nothing to do with the plot of the show. However, for those of you who have experienced stories that have these large open worlds with unique characters, you'll understand that this actually isn't always true. In book 2 of The Last Airbender, we get an episode titled Zuko Alone, which is an episode dedicated to one of the many antagonists to add depth to the character, as well as showing off Zuko's upbringing and showing us what makes him the person that he is in the current story. We also learn about the ongoing war that Aang and his friends are currently trying to stop. We learn firsthand that the Fire Nation is so evil that they're dressing up earthbenders they've captured and sending them to the front line of the war with no weapons in enemy uniforms, so they're getting killed by their buddies, which, holy shit, wow. You know, it's stories like these that remind us that it's not just a story of Aang beating the bad guy. This is about saving countless lives from the ongoing war full of people like this little boy's older brother. And hey, since we're talking about zombie TV shows, let's take a moment to remember this episode from The Walking Dead, completely dedicated to the governor. Not only does it show us what Philip has been up to since abandoning Woodbury, but it also gives us a look at how other people have been surviving the apocalypse. worse. On top of that, it also explains how Philip managed to show up to the prison with even more people this time. We can't just have Philip show up with a group of people and assume, oh yeah, he just stumbled across a couple army vets ready to obey the every command of One-Eyed Willie here. All of this is to say that just because the main characters of a show aren't present doesn't mean that the main story isn't benefiting or being progressed by the events currently unfolding. Taking time to fill in the blanks with episodes like these serve to help prevent any confusion that might occur later on. But like Ben says, if you enjoyed the episode and you say you liked it, you probably didn't really mean that.
All of the talk about how this was like an excellent episode of TV that was wrapped into a broader show is not true. And pretending that it is ignoring kind of the dynamics of the show. So there's my critique of The Last of Us episode 3. I know I'm not allowed to say that I didn't like it. You have to say you loved it. And you particularly loved the most, like the most graphic parts of it. Those are the parts you love the most, right? I mean, because if you don't say that, it means you're a homophobe or something.
And this is something that we hear coming out of any Daily Wire choir boy's mouth when people really like something or think a certain way. Unless Ben is saying you're happy, you're not happy. Unless Ben is saying you enjoy something, you don't really enjoy it. As we saw with Daily Wire's dissection of Chelsea Handler's own life choices, nobody's allowed to like something unless Ben says so. The thing is, you're allowed to not like this episode. If you, the viewer, came to me and said, well, I didn't actually enjoy this episode, I didn't like the pacing, or even, I thought Bill standing completely still in the middle of the Raiders' line of fire was really silly, and I'd say, yeah, I can understand that. I liked it more than you, and that's totally fine. However, none of these are points that Ben made. Not enjoying the episode doesn't make you a homophobe. Being Ben Shapiro, that's what makes you a homophobe. Previously, we've seen just how upset Ben gets when the acceptance of LGBTQ is taught to children, but with this video, I think it's painfully clear that what he was really upset about was the acceptance of the LGBTQ+ in general. See, I know Ben is smart enough to realize why we only saw one zombie the entire episode. I know Ben is smart enough to know what the stakes of the episode really are, and I know that Ben is irritated by the presence of two men in love with each other. I know that that's his real problem with the episode because he makes sure to remind us numerous times throughout this short video about how gay they are. He mentions how gay these characters are more than he actually critiques the episode. And you can't even tell me that this episode is bad because it brings up politics, because in the same video, Ben gives an example of politics done right with an episode of Battlestar Galactica where abortion is completely outlawed for the preservation of humanity. Couldn't possibly imagine why Ben enjoys this episode so much. So his problem isn't politics in TV shows he's trying to watch. His problem is political ideas that he doesn't agree with. And the idea of two gay characters being a political thing is so fucking stupid. Can we break character for a second here? A man loving a woman is not political. It's just human nature, right? So a man loving a man is not political. It's just human nature. Unfortunately, it's gonna be many years before anybody can even think of these people crossing that bridge. And I think that's gonna do it for today. Hey, thanks for watching another episode featuring our boy Benjamin. I know his original video came out about a month ago, but I figured that was enough time for everyone who's interested in the show to enjoy watching it first. Especially now that the season is over, you should probably start those first couple episodes at least. I'm a huge fan of zombies and the horror genre, so seeing him review the show was like watching Ben Shapiro step into my room unannounced. You know, like this was finally my time to attack. I also want to give a huge shout out to Disdain for being my first Patreon ever. Holy shit. It's always extremely motivating to see people interested in what I do, even if it's just like a silly little comment or leaving a like on the video. I really appreciate it, and it makes me want to do so much more. So thank you, Disdain, and thank you all for watching this far. Next week, we'll finally be talking about Taylor the Fiend, so if you're in the mood for laughing at the red pill, be sure to come back for that. And again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Peace. I got a new microphone, by the way. Do you like it? Can you tell? Do I sound crisp? Anyways.